Good news, everyone! The Knuckles miniseries is completely irrelevant to this movie. You don't need to have watched it to know what's going on here. That is such a relief. Sonic the Hedgehog 3. So Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is, you guessed it, the third movie in the Sonic the Hedgehog movie series, based off of Sega's mascot video game franchise. So in Sonic the Hedgehog 3, after the events of Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and the Knuckles miniseries, Shadow the Hedgehog, the ultimate life form, has been awakened, after having been dormant for 50 years. So mysteries and secrets unfold, along with more evil plans in the works. Our Dr. Ivo Robotnik reunites with his grandfather, Dr. Gerald Robotnik, and so now it's up to Team Sonic, Sonic the Hedgehog, Miles Tails Prower, and Knuckles the Echidna to save the world. I've been excited for this one, man, ever since that mid-credit scene in Sonic the Hedgehog 2, which we all saw and freaked out about 2.5 years ago, because we all knew that Shadow was the next logical step to take for this movie series. And so here we go. Starting off with our heroes, Sonic the Hedgehog, once again voiced by Ben Schwartz. He's always great. I mean, I would say even since the first movie, they got the character right. He's super cool, he's super fast, he's super quippy. Although the funny thing is, he doesn't really seem like the main focus of this movie, which is kind of weird since it's called Sonic the Hedgehog. I mean, sure, he's one of the main characters, but I honestly wouldn't call him the only main character here. One of the fears I had for this movie is that it would leave Tails and Knuckles in the background, since there are bigger things going on, but it really didn't. No, Tails and Knuckles, they are still supporting characters, of course, but they are completely relevant. They have plenty of screen time. They are part of the team. It is all about Team Sonic. This movie is all about teamwork. What it takes to really be a team player, how teams work better together when there's friendship and camaraderie going on. This is demonstrated in this movie not just with Team Sonic, but with the Robotniks as well. Yes, Jim Carrey, you know this by now. He plays both Robotniks in this movie.
Double your villains, double your fun.
And man, like more than the other two movies, I gotta say Jim Carrey was awesome in this one. Like with this, I finally get the hype behind Jim Carrey in the 90s because I didn't really grow up with those movies like Ace Ventura. I missed that hype. In Sonic the Hedgehog 3, we get Jim Carrey unleashed, and really these Robotniks, they do feel like more of the main characters, or at least Ivo Robotnik does. Dr. Ivo Robotnik, he's fat now, so he's more accurate to his look from the games. Although weird thing is he never puts on his goggles, cause Eggman, he's always got those glasses or goggles on, in the games I mean. He never puts them on in this movie. I was like, that's what would have made him really look accurate, but whatever. Nitpicks aside, I do want to give props to what they did with Ivo Robotnik in this movie. But now we come down to it. Shadow the Hedgehog, voiced by Keanu Reeves. Dude is completely awesome. I mean, if you're a lifelong Sonic fan, then you know that Shadow is one of the coolest characters in the entire franchise, if not the coolest. Cause he really is like if Sonic had the personality of Batman. He's dark, he's lonesome, he's brooding, but it's because he has a very painful and tragic past. In this movie, we dive into Shadow's character and what made him him, and it's all completely done justice. I'll be honest though, I wish Shadow was in this movie more. And I say that because there are some chunks of time, not big chunks, but some chunks where Shadow's just not around. Like at a point, the movie was going and I was like, where's Shadow? I miss him. And he really only has a couple of big action scenes, which of course were completely kick-ass. I'll get there in a second. I don't know, maybe I'm just being greedy because I just think Shadow the Hedgehog is so awesome. And there were a couple of times where I felt his Keanu was showing. Like his delivery of some of his lines, they did feel just a little bit cheesy, but I'm not gonna complain about that, which I'll explain why in a minute. Point is, I was never disappointed with what we got of Shadow in this movie. I guess it just left me wanting more. Another piece of good news is that the human characters, Tom Wachowski and his wife Maddie, they are in fact featured a lot less in this movie than the previous ones, which is a good thing. Because again, we don't come to see a Sonic movie for those characters. We really don't. I apologize to Tika Sumpter and James Marsden. They're both good actors and they're good in these movies, and I understand why they're in these movies. That goes back to the first one. The plus here is that any scenes with them I actually welcomed, partially because they are more involved with Sonic's plot, whereas in the second movie they weren't for a good amount of time. In this movie, they're out of it for a good chunk and then they come back, just like in the second movie, but the difference here is that while they are out of the plot, it never cuts to them, because they don't matter right now. I'm glad this movie learned that from Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Alright, you want to talk about some action? Let's talk about the action scenes in this movie, because they are everything you want as a Sonic fan or a movie fan. If you're not a Sonic fan, you'll still enjoy this movie, which is a big feat, by the way. But yeah, this movie, we got Sonic versus Shadow. The big motorcycle motorcycle chase that we saw in the trailer, that was so fun to watch. When Shadow's doing his thing, oh my god. He's running super fast, he's levitating with his hover boots, he's teleporting, which I always thought Shadow was so fast that he looked like he was teleporting in the games, but he wasn't actually teleporting. But no, in this movie, he is clearly teleporting, which, alright, cool. When everyone's throwing down in this movie, it's fantastic. I got no notes. Where I do have notes, though, is when it comes to this movie's humor. But it's not like how it was in the last movie. Let me explain. In Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and just hear me out, they decided to really crank up the stupid factor. Now, I don't mean stupid as in bad. There are a couple of different kinds of stupid. Like, example, this is the first example that comes to my head for some reason. Godzilla King of the Monsters, the whole human side plot, that was bad stupid. The stupid in this movie is not like that, but rather just over the top and ridiculous, but the kind that this movie is very self-aware of. This movie knows it's getting stupid right here in this scene, usually with Jim Carrey and his dual roles, so it really plays it up and leans into its absurdity because, oh my god, it's absurd. Some of these scenes, I was like, what the hell am I watching right now and why am I watching it? Again, I didn't think it was bad. I was enjoying myself. It was just nuts. It was something I wasn't expecting from Sonic the Hedgehog 3 featuring Shadow. I was expecting this to be a little more mature and dark and broody because that's how Shadow is, and I figured, alright, maybe the series is kind of getting more mature. It's evolving, kind of like Harry Potter or something. But then the absolute goofiness that comes from the Robotniks, that kind of balances out how heavy the drama gets with Shadow. So it's still a movie for kids first and foremost. And stupid scenes like this happen frequently enough to be considered prominent. I mean, it's not the main focus of the movie, but you know, it's relevant enough here. So if there are gonna be any complaints about this movie, that's gonna be it. Your enjoyment of it is gonna depend on how well you take those scenes. If you love them and you die laughing, then great. If you hate them, then you might not like this movie, I'll be honest. And I mean, not all the humor in this movie is the stupid stuff. The pop culture references, I actually enjoyed them in this one. I didn't so much in the last one, but this one, they actually made me laugh. I think they were just in better taste, I don't know. But so many times I was like, you know what, I'll forgive that one, because it was funny. It worked for what this movie is. So yeah. I want to give props to the writing. And of course, there are great moments of fan service in this movie. Not gonna dive into detail, but they're in here. The crowd-pleasing moments. Oh yeah. Let's move on. Gotta touch on the music because thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Tom Holkenborg, for finally putting music from the games into this movie. Yeah, on more than a few occasions, I was like, wait, I know that music. That's from the games. Yes, finally. I loved it. There is a theme that I actually picked up on from the second movie that does return in this one, in the score that is, an original theme, which is actually a pretty good one. All in all, this movie has the best soundtrack of the series so far. So that's a huge plus. In the end, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is everything you want it to be, plus some stupid stuff. The good news is, if you're a Sonic fan, this movie doesn't leave anything out that you want in here. It's got all the funny character banter, it's got all the awesome action scenes, the really cool and wacky visuals, the big climactic fight at the end. If it weren't for the ridiculous stupid stuff, which in my opinion got a little too over the top for my taste personally, a few times, this movie would have gotten my best rating. I was really hoping for it, man. But as it stands right now, for Sonic the Hedgehog 3, I will still definitely say, go see this movie while it's in theaters. I'll even throw in at full price, because it's worth it. Shame this movie's not in IMAX though, stupid Disney. And yes, there is a mid-credits scene and a post-credits scene. They're both pretty great, so definitely stick around for those. Alright, so Sonic the Hedgehog 3, have you seen it yet? What are your thoughts on it? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And of course, thank you for subscribing. Peace!